Hey, my name's Alex Hayes. I'm 27, and I work as a construction engineer in a small suburb just outside Denver, Colorado. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business. Quiet streets lined with ranch-style houses, kids riding bikes until dusk, and the occasional block party where folks grill burgers and swap stories. My days are pretty routine. Clock in at the site, oversee blueprints for new builds or renovations, grab a sandwich for lunch, and head home to my modest one-bedroom apartment. Nothing flashy, but it suits me. I've got a beat-up Ford truck that's seen better days, a collection of old video games, and a love for fixing things, whether it's a leaky faucet or an engine that won't turn over. My best friend since we were kids is Jake Owens. We grew up on the same block, went to the same schools, and shared everything from scraped knees to late-night gaming sessions. Jake's the kind of guy who's always got a plan, confident, outgoing, with a laugh that fills the room. We bonded over soccer in middle school, spent high school summers working odd jobs to save for our first cars, and even after college, we've stayed tight. These days, he's married to his high school sweetheart, Emily, and they've got a cozy house a few miles from where we grew up. Weekends often find me over there, helping him with whatever project he's got going, painting the fence, tuning up his motorcycle, or just hanging out with a couple of beers while we reminisce. And then there's his mom, Marilyn Owens. She's 42 now, but she doesn't look it. Always put together with that effortless grace some women have. She divorced Jake's dad when Jake was just a kid, and she raised him on her own, working as an office manager at a local real estate firm. Marilyn's the type who's tough but kind-hearted. She'd bake cookies for the neighborhood kids, but if we tracked mud through her kitchen, we'd hear about it. I remember her as this constant presence in our lives, cheering at our games, patching up our cuts, and dishing out advice whether we asked for it or not. "You boys better clean up your act, or you'll never find decent girls," she'd say with a wink, her voice carrying that mix of sternness and warmth. Over the years, she's been like a second mom to me. I'd crash at their place when my folks were out of town, and she'd make sure I had a hot meal. But as I got older, something shifted. I'd catch myself noticing her in ways I shouldn't. The way her laugh lit up the room, how she'd tuck a strand of her dark hair behind her ear while stirring pasta sauce, or the quiet strength she showed after long days at work. She shared stories with me sometimes, late at night when Jake had crashed out, about her dreams before marriage, the loneliness after the divorce, how she poured everything into raising her son. I listened, feeling this pull I couldn't explain, but I buried it deep. She was Jake's mom, for God's sake, off limits, untouchable. At Jake's wedding last year, I was his best man. Marilyn looked stunning in a simple blue dress, her eyes misty as she watched him say his vows. Afterward at the reception, she pulled me aside for a hug. "My boy's all grown up," she whispered, her voice cracking a little. "Alex, you need to start thinking about your own life. Don't just take care of everyone else." I smiled, patted her back, and changed the subject. But her words stuck with me, stirring up feelings I'd tried to ignore. That brings me to last weekend. Jake texted me to come over and help fix the garage door, something about it sticking after the last storm. I showed up early, tools in hand, and we spent the morning wrenching it back into shape. Sweaty and covered in grease, we cracked jokes like old times. As we wrapped up, Jake slapped me on the back with a grin. "Dude, stay for dinner tonight. I've got a surprise for you." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of surprise? Last time you said that, we ended up at that awful karaoke bar." He laughed. "Nah, better. Blind date. Emily's friend, Rebecca. She's cool, teaches at the elementary school, loves animals. Perfect for you, man. You've been single too long." I hesitated, rubbing the back of my neck. Dating wasn't my strong suit. My last relationship fizzled out a year ago, and I hadn't put much effort into it since. But Jake was insistent, and before I knew it, he'd set it up for Tuesday night at Riverside Coffee, a cozy spot downtown with dim lights and good brews. Just then, Marilyn poked her head out from the kitchen door, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "What are you two scheming now?" Jake beamed. "Just hooking Alex up, Mom. Blind date. Emily's idea." Marilyn's eyes flicked to me, something flickering in them. Disappointment? Hurt? It was gone in a flash. She forced a smile. "Well, good luck with that. Just don't scare her off." Then she turned away, busying herself with something inside. My stomach twisted, but I brushed it off. Jake didn't notice. Tuesday rolled around faster than I expected. I showered, threw on my one decent blue button-up shirt, and drove to the cafe, nerves buzzing. What was I doing? Blind dates weren't my thing, but maybe Jake was right. I needed to get out there. Rebecca arrived right on time, a friendly woman in her late 20s with curly blonde hair and a warm smile. She was easy to talk to, sharing stories about her students and her rescue dog. We laughed about bad first dates we'd had, bonded over our love for hiking in the Rockies, and ordered a second round of lattes. For the first time in a while, I felt relaxed, like maybe this could lead somewhere. Then the bell over the door jingled. I glanced up casually, and my heart stopped. There, shaking off her coat, was Marilyn. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on me and Rebecca. For a split second, her face fell, a mix of surprise and something deeper. She recovered quickly, but not before I saw it. What was she doing here? She walked in like she owned the place, but then again, Marilyn always had that quiet confidence. Her coat was slung over one arm, and she was dressed simply. A soft gray sweater over jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She spotted us almost immediately, her steps faltering just a fraction. Rebecca was mid-sentence, telling me about a hiking trip she'd taken last summer, when I felt the shift in the air. Marilyn's eyes met mine, and for a heartbeat, everything froze. "Alex?" she said, her voice carrying across the cafe with that familiar warmth, though laced with surprise. She approached our table, glancing at Rebecca with polite curiosity. "I didn't expect to see you here." I stood up instinctively, my chair scraping against the floor. "Marilyn, hey, what brings you out this way?" She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just needed a coffee fix after a long day. And you?" "This looks like—" She trailed off, her gaze flicking between me and Rebecca again. Rebecca, ever the quick one, extended her hand. "Hi, I'm Rebecca. Nice to meet you. Are you a friend of Alex's?" Marilyn shook her hand gracefully. "Something like that. I'm Marilyn Owens, Jake's mom." Rebecca's eyes widened slightly in understanding. "Oh, Jake's mentioned you." Small world. I could feel the heat rising in my face. This wasn't how I'd pictured the night going. "Yeah, Jake set this up. Blind date thing." Marilyn nodded slowly, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she looked right at me, and there was something raw in her eyes, hurt maybe, or regret. "A blind date? That's, nice. Good for you, Alex." She paused, then added softly, almost as if she couldn't help herself. "Why have you never asked me out?" The words hung in the air like a challenge, quiet but unmistakable. Rebecca froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. I stared at Marilyn, my mind racing. Had I heard her right? This woman who'd been a fixture in my life for years, who'd scolded me as a kid and hugged me at Jake's wedding, was she really saying this now, in front of a stranger? "Marilyn?" I started, my voice low, but she held up a hand. "I'm sorry, that came out wrong. Or maybe it didn't." She glanced at Rebecca apologetically. "I didn't mean to interrupt your evening." Rebecca set her cup down, her smile kind but knowing. "No, it's okay. Actually, I think I should step out for a minute. Got a call I need to make." She grabbed her phone, giving me a subtle nod. "It was great meeting you, Alex. And you too, Marilyn." With that, she slipped away toward the door, leaving us alone at the table. I gestured for Marilyn to sit, my heart pounding. "Please, join me. I don't know what to say." She hesitated, then lowered herself into the chair across from me, folding her hands on the table. "You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But I've been holding this in for a while, Alex. Seeing you here, with her, it just hit me." I leaned forward, searching her face. "Holding what in?" She took a deep breath, her fingers twisting together. "That I like you. More than just as Jake's friend. I've watched you grow up into this amazing man. Kind, reliable, always there when someone needs you. You've been over at our house so many times, fixing things, listening to my stories, making me laugh on bad days. And somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like you were just a kid from the neighborhood." I swallowed hard, the cafe's ambient chatter fading into the background. "Marilyn, I've felt something too, for years. But you're Jake's mom. I didn't want to mess things up, ruin our friendship, make things awkward for everyone. And the age thing? I figured you'd never see me that way. Her eyes softened, a small, sad smile tugging at her lips. The age thing? Alex, I'm 42. You're 27. It's not that big a gap in the grand scheme, but I get it. The fear. After my divorce, I threw myself into raising Jake, into work. I didn't date much because I didn't want to complicate his life, but now he's married, building his own family, and I'm alone. Those evenings when you'd come over, even just to help with something small, they meant more to me than you know. I reached across the table, hesitating before covering her hand with mine. Her skin was warm and she didn't pull away. I remember all those times. You'd make that apple pie, the one with the cinnamon crust. And we'd talk for hours while Jake was out. You'd tell me about your dreams, how you wanted to travel someday, see the Grand Canyon at sunrise. I always wished I could be the one to take you there. She squeezed my hand gently. Why didn't you say something? All these years, I thought maybe I was imagining the connection. The way you'd look at me sometimes, like you really saw me. Not just as Jake's mom, but as me. I was scared, I admitted. Scared of rejection, of what Jake would think, of the whole town talking. This place is small. People love their gossip. Marilyn nodded, her thumb tracing a light circle on the back of my hand. I know, I felt the same. But seeing you here tonight, on a date with someone else, it made me realize I couldn't keep quiet anymore. Life's too short to hide behind what-ifs. We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, casting a soft glow through the cafe windows. Rebecca reappeared at the door, waving subtly to catch my eye. She approached with a gracious smile. Hey, I hate to cut this short, but I should head out. It was really nice meeting you, Alex. And Marilyn, take care. I stood to hug her goodbye. Thanks for understanding, and for the great conversation. She whispered in my ear. Don't let this slip away. She's special. Then she was gone, the bell jingling behind her. Marilyn and I were alone again, the cafe starting to empty out as the evening wound down. What now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She met my gaze steadily. Now we talk, really talk, no more hiding. We talked for what felt like hours, the coffee going cold between us. I opened up about my fears, how I'd always admired her strength after the divorce, how her kitchen felt more like home than my own apartment sometimes. She shared her loneliness, the quiet nights after Jake moved out, how she'd hoped I'd say something but never pushed. By the end, the tension had eased into something real, vulnerable. As we left the cafe, the cool evening air hit us. We walked along the river path, the water murmuring beside us. For the first time, I reached for her hand. It was warm, steady, and she didn't pull away. My heart raced, but in that moment, I knew I couldn't let fear hold me back anymore. After that walk along the river, holding Marilyn's hand for the first time, I drove home in a daze. The town lights blurred past my windshield, but my mind was stuck on her, on the way her fingers had intertwined with mine so naturally, like they'd been waiting for that moment all along. I pulled into my apartment complex, parked the truck, and sat there in the dark for a while, replaying everything. Her words at the cafe echoed, I've liked you for a long time. How had I missed it? Or had I just been too scared to see? Sleep didn't come easy that night. I tossed on my couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me. Memories flooded in, ones I'd buried deep. Like the time a couple years back when Jake was out of town for work, and Marilyn called me over to help fix a leaky faucet. I'd shown up with my tools, and we ended up spending the whole evening in her kitchen. She made pasta from scratch, rolling out the dough while telling me stories about her nursing days. Funny ones about eccentric patients, sad ones about the long shifts that left her exhausted. I'd listened, really listened, and for a moment, it felt like more than just helping out a friend's mom. But I'd pushed the thought away, convinced it was nothing. Or the holidays last year, when she invited me over for Christmas Eve because she knew I didn't have family plans. Jake and Emily were there too, but after they left, Marilyn and I stayed up talking by the fire. She opened up about her divorce, how lonely it had been raising Jake alone, how she'd given up on dating because who wants a woman with all this baggage? I'd wanted to say something then, tell her she was incredible, that any guy would be lucky, but the words stuck in my throat. Fear won out, like it always did. The next day, I couldn't shake the mix of excitement and dread building inside me. Marilyn and I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. But Jake, he was my best friend, the guy who'd been there through every high and low since we were kids. How do you tell someone like that you're falling for his mom? I paced my apartment all morning, staring at my phone, debating whether to text him or just show up. In the end, I decided face-to-face was the only way. No hiding behind screens for this. I drove over to Jake's house around lunchtime, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. The familiar driveway looked the same, his truck parked out front, the basketball hoop we used to shoot hoops under still hanging crookedly from the garage. But everything felt different now. I knocked on the door and Emily answered, her smile fading when she saw my expression. "Alex? Everything okay? Jake's in the kitchen." "Yeah," I muttered. "I just need to talk to him. And Marilyn, if she's here." Emily nodded, stepping aside. "She's here too. Come on in." The house smelled like fresh coffee and something baking. Marilyn's apple muffins, probably. I found them both in the kitchen, Jake scrolling on his phone at the table, Marilyn pouring a cup. She looked up first, her eyes widening slightly. She knew why I was there. Jake glanced my way, casual at first. "Hey man, what's up? You look like you saw a ghost." I sat down across from him, my mouth dry. Marilyn hovered by the counter watching us. "Jake, we need to talk about something important." He set his phone down, frowning. "Okay? Shoot." There was no easy way to say it. I took a breath and just let it out. "I've liked your mom for a long time, more than as a friend, and she feels the same. We talked last night after the blind date. It's real, Jake. We're not just messing around." The room went dead silent. Jake's face drained of color, his eyes flicking between me and Marilyn. "What? You're serious? Mom?" Marilyn stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Jake, honey?" He cut her off, standing up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "No, wait. You're telling me my best friend and my mom? That's crazy, Alex. She's my mom. What the hell?" I winced, but I didn't back down. I know it sounds insane. I was scared too, for years. But it's not about disrespecting you or our friendship. I care about her, a lot, and she deserves to be happy. Jake ran a hand through his hair, pacing the small kitchen. "Happy? With you? Man, we've been friends since we were 8. How long has this been going on behind my back?" "Nothing's been going on," Marilyn said gently, placing a hand on his arm. He didn't pull away, but he looked hurt. "We only admitted it to each other last night. Jake, I've been alone for so long. Raising you was everything, but now I need to live for myself too. If you can't accept this, I'll stop. I won't risk losing you over it." Jake stopped pacing, his shoulders slumping. He looked at her, then at me, his eyes full of confusion. I need some air." He grabbed his jacket and headed out the back door to the yard, slamming it just a little too hard. I started to stand, but Marilyn shook her head. "Give him time, Alex. He's processing. Jake's always been protective. It's how I raised him." I nodded, but guilt twisted in my gut. What if he hates me for this? "He won't," she said softly, squeezing my shoulder. "He loves you like a brother. Just wait." The afternoon dragged on. Emily checked on us once, offering awkward support before retreating upstairs. Marilyn and I sat in silence mostly, sipping coffee that had gone cold. I replayed every worst-case scenario in my head. Jake cutting me off, our friendship shattered, the whole town turning it into gossip. But underneath the fear, there was resolve. This felt right, and I wasn't walking away. As the sun started dipping lower, I stepped outside to the yard. Jake was sitting on the old swing set we'd built as teens, staring at the ground, a cigarette dangling from his fingers, something he only did when stressed. I approached slowly. "Mind if I join?" He shrugged, not looking up. I sat on the grass nearby, and we stayed quiet for a few minutes, the only sound the distant hum of traffic from the highway. Finally, Jake spoke. You really like her? Like, for real? Yeah, I said. It's not some fling. She's amazing, strong, kind. She's been there for me in ways I didn't even realize until now. He took a drag, exhaling slowly. I know she has. Mom's always talking about you, how reliable you are, how you fixed the roof last winter without asking for anything. I just never thought it'd be like this. He paused, flicking ash away. It feels weird, man. You're my best friend. She's my mom. I get it, I replied. Believe me, I fought it for years, but fighting it just made me miserable. And I think it did the same for her. Jake nodded slowly, his anger fading into something more resigned. I've seen her sad, you know. After Dad left, she put on this tough front, but late nights, I'd hear her crying sometimes. She deserves better than being alone. He looked at me then, really looked. If anyone could make her happy, it'd be you. You're a good guy, Alex, just don't screw it up. Relief washed over me like a wave. I won't. I promise. And Jake, this doesn't change us. You're still my brother. He stubbed out the cigarette and stood, pulling me into a rough hug. Yeah, well, if you hurt her, I'll kick your ass, brother or not. We both laughed, the tension breaking. As we walked back inside, the weight I'd been carrying lifted. Marilyn was waiting in the kitchen, her eyes anxious. Jake went to her, hugging her tightly. I'm okay with it, Mom. Just take it slow, yeah? She smiled through tears, nodding. Thank you, honey. That night as I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. The hard part wasn't over, not by a long shot, but facing Jake head-on had made it real. Now we just had to face the rest of the world. With Jake's blessing, tentative as it was, Marilyn and I stepped into something new. It started small. Coffee dates at out-of-the-way spots, walks along the river trail where no one from town would spot us. We were careful at first, not because we were ashamed, but because we knew the whispers would come. And they did, faster than I expected. Our town is small, maybe 5,000 people tops, and news travels like wildfire. It started with a coworker at the construction site clapping me on the back one morning. Heard you're seeing someone older, Hayes. Cougar hunting, huh? He laughed like it was a joke, but his eyes had that judgmental glint. I forced a smile and changed the subject, but inside it burned. By the end of the week, the rumors had spread. Alex Hayes is dating his best friend's mom. Can you believe it? She's old enough to be his, well, you know. I tried to ignore it, focusing on Marilyn instead. We'd meet after her shifts at the clinic, and she'd tell me about her day, dealing with fussy patients or the latest hospital drama. I'd share stories from the job site, making her laugh with tales of botched blueprints or stubborn equipment. Those moments felt pure, untouched by the outside noise. But the noise found its way in. One afternoon, we decided to grab lunch at the diner downtown. Nothing flashy, just burgers and fries. As we walked in holding hands, heads turned. The waitress, someone I'd known since high school, gave us a tight smile and took our order without her usual chatter. At the next table, a group of older women, neighbors from Jake's street, leaned in, whispering just loud enough for us to hear, "Isn't that Marilyn Owens? With that young guy? What would her ex think? Or her son?" Marilyn's grip on my hand tightened, but she kept her head high, pretending not to notice. I felt anger bubbling up, hot and sharp. "Ignore them," she whispered. "They're just bored." But it ate at me. That night, as we sat on her porch swing, she admitted it hurt more than she let on. I've dealt with gossip before after the divorce. People said I was too independent, too tough. But it's different. They act like I'm taking advantage of you. You're not, I said firmly, pulling her closer. If anything, I'm the lucky one. You've got your life together, job, house, everything. I'm just the guy who fixes bridges and shows up unannounced. She smiled faintly, but her eyes were tired. Age makes it a target. They see me as the older woman chasing youth and you as the naive kid. It stings. I hated seeing her like that, strong Marilyn, brought low by small minds. The next day I made a point of it. We went grocery shopping together, and when we ran into one of those whispering neighbors in the produce aisle, I didn't shy away. Hey, Mrs. Thompson, I said loudly, wrapping an arm around Marilyn's waist. This is Marilyn, the woman I love. We're grabbing stuff for dinner. How's your garden doing? The woman's face turned red, and she mumbled something about tomatoes before scurrying off. Marilyn squeezed my hand, whispering, "You're braver than I am." But it wasn't bravery, it was protectiveness. I wasn't going to let anyone make her feel small. The real test came at a family barbecue Jake and Emily hosted a couple weeks later. It was supposed to be casual, friends, neighbors, a few relatives. Jake had invited us, saying it was time to rip off the Band-Aid. We showed up together, and the stares hit like a wall. Emily's aunt pulled her aside, whispering furiously. A couple of Jake's old high school buddies shot me looks, half amused, half disgusted. "Dude, really?" one muttered as he passed. Even some coworkers I'd invited avoided us, sticking to safe small talk before drifting away. Marilyn held it together, chatting politely, but I saw the strain in her smile. At one point, she excused herself to the kitchen, and I followed. "This was a mistake," she said quietly, leaning against the counter. "They're judging us, judging me." I took her hands. "Let them. We're not hurting anyone. You make me happy, Marilyn. That's what matters." Just then, Jake walked in, overhearing. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. "She's right, though. People are talking. But screw 'em. Mom's smiling more these days than she has in years. If you're the reason, then I'm good." He turned to Marilyn. "And Mom, if he's what you want, go for it. You deserve it." His words broke the tension. Marilyn hugged him, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Jake." The rest of the barbecue wasn't easy. More whispers, a few awkward silences. But we stuck it out. By the end, a couple of people even came around. Emily's sister complimented Marilyn on looking so happy, and one of my coworkers pulled me aside to say, "If it works, who cares?" It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a start. As the weeks turned into months, the gossip faded. Not gone, but quieter. People got bored, moved on to the next scandal. Marilyn and I grew stronger through it, our bond forged in those tough moments. She'd remind me, life's too short to live for their opinions. And I'd hold her close, grateful we'd chosen each other despite the storm. As the months blurred into seasons, the sharp edges of the gossip softened, fading into the background like old news. Our town moved on, there were always new scandals, new whispers to chase. Marilyn and I settled into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. No grand gestures, no rushing to redefine everything. We just lived, day by day, building something quiet and real. Mornings became my favorite part. I'd wake up early, slip into her kitchen while she was still in bed, and make breakfast. Scrambled eggs with cheese the way she liked, fresh coffee brewing on the stove. She'd shuffle in, hair tousled, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "Morning, handsome," she'd murmur, her voice sleepy and warm. We'd sit at the table, talking about nothing and everything. Her tough cases at the clinic, my latest project at work, or just the way the sunlight hit the mountains outside the window. She looked different now, brighter, more at ease. The lines around her eyes softened when she laughed, and that sadness I'd glimpsed before was gone, replaced by a glow that made my chest ache with gratitude. Jake came around fully too. At first it was awkward. Dinners where he'd glance between us, testing the waters, but soon it felt like old times, only better. We'd gather on weekends, Jake and Emily over for barbecue, the four of us, and eventually five, when they announced their pregnancy, sitting around the fire pit in the backyard. Jake would tease me relentlessly. "So, when are you making an honest woman out of my mom?" Marilyn would swat his arm, laughing, and I'd just grin, feeling like I belonged in a way I never had before. One night, as we roasted marshmallows, Jake pulled me aside. "Thanks, man," he said quietly. "For making her happy. I mean it." It was his way of closing the chapter on any lingering doubt. We didn't rush into anything big, no splashy wedding or public announcements. That wasn't us. Instead, we took small trips. A weekend drive up to the Rockies, staying in a cozy cabin where we'd hike trails and watch the stars at night. Or lazy Sundays binge-watching old movies on her couch, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky orange, she turned to me. "If you hadn't held my hand that night at the cafe," she said softly, "we'd have missed all this." I kissed her forehead, pulling her closer. I'm just glad I finally did. You were worth the wait. Life wasn't perfect. Work stresses crept in, little arguments about nothing flared up, but we handled them together, talking it out over late-night tea. Marilyn taught me patience. I reminded her she didn't have to carry everything alone. And in those moments, I realized how much we'd both needed this. Not just love, but the kind that heals the quiet hurts we'd carried for years. Looking back, I know now that happiness isn't about avoiding fear. It's about facing it head-on, owning your feelings even when the world pushes back. With Marilyn by my side, my days feel fuller, my nights warmer. I'm not alone anymore, and neither is she. As she whispered to me one quiet evening, "Thank you for choosing me," I pulled her into my arms and replied, "We chose each other. And in that choice, we've found something timeless."